And that's, simply what's been disclosed. They're rich by any standards, and who knows what's offshore or hidden in other ways. But I think an interesting contrast, and I don't know if this will come through the media at all, but Senator Tim Kaine, who seems to be an excellent choice for vice president and a terrific person, he's the example of living the life of public service on a public servant's salary. Whether a city council member, mayor, governor, senator, he's lived on a public salary and lived a normal life for someone making that amount of money.
A middle class sort of deal.
Yes, whereas the Clintons have been living a political life with hedge fund manager Wall Street compensation. And I think the contrast is really quite stark.
Well,
because Kaine demonstrates you can do it, you can espouse those values and live a different way.
Well, it seems very hypocritical when she talks about getting rid of loopholes and really making sure the big corporations pay their fair share, when those are the people that are helping her live the way she is.
Correct.
Well, let's get, speaking of that, the United States has the highest tax rate in the world for businesses. We just passed Japan. That's technically what
it has the highest nominal tax rate.
Yeah, technically what they're supposed to pay. But we have many loopholes and special interest deductions for corporations, right? So
do you know how much United States income tax General Electric pays, which is, I think, either the largest or second largest company domiciled in the United States?
Very little, if not zero, right?
Zero.
Okay. Well, that's my point. But how many medium and small companies get those kind of loopholes?
Well, actually, it's interesting. The corporate income tax in the United States is really an industry-by-industry tax. So, for example, if you're Target, which is based, of course, headquartered in Minneapolis, retailers typically don't have many opportunities for deductions. There's some depreciation if they own their own real estate, but most retailers pay close to the maximum top effective corporate rate, 30+%. If you're a drug company, you pay essentially no tax. If you're a large multinational, you often pay no tax. If you're an oil company, you typically have been a favored industry and paid no tax. So there's really many, many different corporate taxes. And actually, Sarah, what's sort of an interesting phenomenon that's been happening is if you look at the percentage of revenue raised by the United States tax system that comes from the corporate income tax. If you were to go back 30 or 40 years ago, those numbers would have been somewhere between, an average year, between 20 and 25%. Now it's less than 10%. So given the deficits we're running, you might say you could almost just eliminate the corporate income tax because it just isn't raising that much revenue because they're hiring the best and the brightest tax lawyers and lobbyists in D.C. to protect themselves. For example, when you go through the audit process, you've got seriously undermanned revenue agents and tax litigators who don't hold a candle to the best and brightest that are hired by large multinationals.
Well,
so
we could simplify the tax rate then, do some kind of flat tax and save a ton of effort doing taxes, shave the IRS down quite a bit, and make more money by getting rid of all these loopholes and just do a simple, small, flat tax.
Well, people talk about it, but then my first question would be, Sarah, let's say we do that. Do you own your own home or townhome or anything?
Well, I'm talking for businesses, but yeah, I would like my interest payment deducted.
And how about charitable contributions?
Of course.
Well, that's about 30% of all the deductions. So.
Although I would, if my tax rate went from 38% or whatever I paid 35% down to 10%, I might be okay with skipping some of that.
It can't go down to 10. The math doesn't add up. But actually, we did something conceptually along those lines in the Great Tax Compromise of 1986, which I called an eclipse of the sun because I never thought it could be done, where actually many, many deductions were eliminated and rates were substantially lowered both at the corporate and individual level. and there was kind of a tacit agreement that the tax code would not be muddled up again. And then I remember when I was running tax policy in 1992-93 at the U.S. Treasury, people would come in seeking loopholes. There was or seeking special treatment, and oftentimes they were meritorious cases. It wasn't just a case of I don't want to pay tax, but the tax laws applied to their particular set of circumstances did not appear to create a fair result. But the long and short of it is that we were very unwilling to grant any exceptions, legislatively or administratively, to the code as it then existed. And then, quite frankly, with the election of Bill Clinton, and then with the continuation by George W. Bush, we've had a gradual remucking of the code. We also had, of course, that Citizens United decision, which removed all monetary constraints on political giving and lobbying. And the result is that there's more special interest legislation and regulations than ever before. So the system is a mess. But let me hold out one potential ray of hope, which will probably not happen until the system is really, truly broken, whatever that means. That probably means when foreign countries stop lending us money to float our deficits. But I think the only way in the long run the system gets materially changed is because we do need to raise money, is if we do have a national value-added tax, a sales tax, a consumption tax, whatever you want to call it. And if you had a 4 or 5% national sales tax, you could actually get rid of the corporate income tax, which causes so much of the complexity in the system. But most politicians believe it would be suicide to enact such a tax.
Well, but the problem is a lot of these big corporations pay nothing anyways, and then other industries pay a boatload. It's just not fair to choose who's going to have to pay nothing and who has to pay the full amount. That's not right.
Well, that's why consumption tax at the corporate or individual level would be a much fairer tax, because you, in effect, say that everybody pays.
Yeah, we're not going to say this industry is worth more than that industry. It just doesn't make sense. Well, let's get to a different issue. Let's get to Obamacare, which is a huge hot-button issue. Republicans want to repeal it completely. What would they replace it with? What would Trump replace it with if he repealed it?
Nobody has a clue. I mean, that's a political joke. That's sloganeering. The healthcare system, and I don't pretend to be an expert on it, but is so complicated. When people say that, it's just a hollow slogan that gets. It's like feeding red meat to the base. It gets people all hopped up. I don't think anyone has a clue, and I think that horse has left the gate, and we'll never get it back in.
I would agree with that. Although I know that doctors that I've talked to are really, really stressed out with Obamacare the way it is, and they don't feel they can take care of their patients. There is a lot of issues in that arena, a lot of things that need to be cleaned up.
Yes, but how do you do it? I mean, first of all, you've got huge vested interests. Among the strongest lobbies is the Pharmaceutical Association. During the George W. Bush administration, they were sufficiently strong that they got a so-called free enterprise conservative Republican to remove from the federal government the ability to negotiate drug prices. So can you imagine how much of the healthcare budget would be lowered if the government, with all of its power, were able to negotiate with the drug companies?
It's completely ridiculous that you can't negotiate. Completely ridiculous.
So Lipitor, one of the most, if not the most widely prescribed and used drug in the world, the statin that lowers cholesterol, that drug can range in price from over $100 for 30 pills in the United States to $5 in Canada, because of the negotiating powers of different governments. So there's probably 50, 60, or 70 different prices that are paid in different countries for exactly the same medicine, and that's why you often see people from Minnesota, for example, going up to Canada for certain medicines.
That's abuse of the situation. But there's also a lot of drugs that, this is what I'm hearing now from pharmacists, that drugs that were generic, that they just can't make money in the generic market. So a lot of the brands are pulling out of that generic market. And now these generic companies are finding themselves not having competitors. So they're jacking the generic price up. It might have been $10 for a month, now up to $250 for the month. And people can't afford their drugs anymore.
Right.
And
yeah.
so
I mean, at a certain point, the healthcare system will break. The United States, The Economist magazine every year does an annual issue on healthcare throughout the world. And the United States, from a statistical standpoint, has far and away the worst healthcare in the world per dollar spent. We spend more than 2 times per capita. The next closest country,
Yeah, France.
That's per capita. And by all of the different measures of healthcare, we're barely in the top 30 now.
We need to take a short break. We will be back with Alan Wilensky in a moment.
What is a brilliant culture? And how do we create them? Why are they important? Claudette Rowley has created a breakthrough 5-step process to help you design a culture that is authentic, innovative, and successful. Learn how to create change with Cultural Brilliance Radio, the DNA of organizational excellence, and Claudette Rowley. To learn more or work with Claudette, visit ClaudetteRowley.com.
There are so many resources out there for meditation. But did you know that Atana's Heart Earth Healing Meditation is available for you for free? Yes, that's right. You can receive this free healing meditation today from Atana Badili. All you need to do is visit his website, atanamethod.com. That's ATAANA method.com, and sign up. You will receive your free meditation instantly. That's atanamethod.com.
Are you ready for a game changer? Sarah Westall is bringing you Business Game Changers Radio. Sarah brings you leading experts, visionaries, and newsmakers who provide the best commentary on big issues and cutting-edge innovations. Sarah's 20 years as a business executive will help you think like an entrepreneur with expertise, energy, and attitude. Tune in to Business Game Changers Mondays at noon Pacific, 3 Eastern on TransformationTalkRadio.com.
Hey everyone, this is Dr. Pat. I am so thrilled. I've had the honor of working with Leslie Fontaine for the past year or so, and what she has created in her hit program, Sheer Alchemy, transcends what most of us get to listen to or hear in any point in time in our lives. But beyond that, Leslie is working with people all over the world, and she has created something phenomenal based on the feedback and input from the archangels, from the ascended masters, from the light beings, and most importantly, from each and every one of you. So if you want to change your life, if you're ready to step into your own version of sheer alchemy, please give Leslie a call at 678-665-3366. And why? Because this is what you're going to be prepared to do. Be amazed, and on your part, connect with the ascended masters that are there to help you custom make the life that you are meant to live.
A word of caution: if you prefer the status quo and you are not interested in improving every aspect of your life, this book will trigger the shift out of you. The Truth is Funny, Shift Happens is available now. Author Colette Steffen brings the powerful knowledge and life-changing energy and empowerment from the radio airwaves to the pages of her new book. To get your copy in paperback or ebook, visit thetruthisfunny.com today.
Welcome back to Business Game Changers. I'm Sarah Westall, and we're talking to Alan Wilensky about this crazy 2016 election. But before we get back into that, I want to remind you, of course, you can go to my website at sarahwestall.com and read all my blogs and listen to any of these podcasts. Also, I want to say that this show airs in New York, Rhode Island, and Connecticut. You can hear it every Monday at 3 p.m. Eastern Time, and that is also 2 p.m. Central for those of you in my neck of the woods. And I hope you get a chance to listen to it. It's also streaming live on Transformation Talk Radio and other outlets. And then after that, it goes to podcast in 90-plus different channels, 100-plus. It keeps fluctuating depending on what we're doing. We keep adding things all the time. So I hope you get a chance to listen to some of my other podcasts. But let's get back to Alan Wilensky's